Hi and welcome to Kegels and Coffee. My name is Isabel and I'm your host. My friend Colette and I recorded this episode on our very last day together in Rifle Canyon. It's a pretty special place for both of us, so it felt kind of perfect. Colette grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. She fell in love with rock climbing and especially the lifestyle that came along with it while she was in college. She's a talented climber, loves making films, and is really good at capturing moments with her lens. To learn more about her, including her first feature-length film with Never Not Collection called Pretty Strong, check out the links in the show notes. Colette and I have known each other for well over a decade, and our friendship is currently sponsored by WhatsApp. But no, for real, we sometimes leave each other 30-minute voice messages, and that's just how we bridge the gaps of not seeing each other because we both move around a lot. And our vagabond lifestyle was actually one of our main topics. We talked about how going to Spain always reminds us to slow down and how our gung-ho American approach doesn't really work there. The US is amazing in so many ways, but sometimes the pace can feel a little bit intense. And in Spain, productivity just doesn't really seem to be a main concern, which can make it interesting, especially when you're running errands and you show up somewhere and it's siesta time, the store is closed for 3 hours. We also talked about how it's hard to travel lightly and be a minimalist when you really love shoes. And by the way, Colette has a containment issue, so no matter where she goes, her stuff somehow just tends to explode. I mean, basically, moving around can feel chaotic, and having all of our stuff in one place sounds pretty nice right now, so we shall see how that goes. We also talked about a full body yes versus a full body no when trying to make decisions small or big, and how we've learned to listen to our intuition a bit more, sometimes the hard way, but it feels good to know when enough is enough and it's time to stop. I hope you enjoy our talk. Colette cracks me up, and as always, I love hearing her thoughts on things. No, seriously, what am I doing with my life?
How did that come across? Did they hear me?
I feel like I'm losing my fucking mind.
You're messed up.
I need to just Netflix and chill.
Like, I'm gonna meditate like a badass.
It's just like this psychotic break, and then I get my period, and I'm like, oh, it was just your period again.
Am I the only one feeling this crazy? Here
Sweet.
we are, Colette.
We're doing it.
We're doing
a podcast.
Finally doing the podcast. I'm so excited. And in such a special place.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, Rifle. The place that, man, okay, so 2011, we had that whole season here together.
Yeah.
Had just gone through some major life changes. And it seems to be the place that we come back to and kind of reset and have a season, and it always flows so easily.
Yeah. It's
I love that.
even after, that was the first, and then there's been just all these years where sometimes we see each other and it's a little disjointed, and then sometimes we see each other and we just hang out the whole time, but it's never forced.
Yeah.
It's always really easy.
It's always so flowy and it's not like we're planning. It just kind of falls together, and I appreciate that about our friendship. Even our times in Spain, it's always okay, I might be here, I might be there, and then we end up
Just works.
yeah, and it just works, and it's so special because of that.
Yeah,
I'm
we were
so
lucky that
psyched.
way.
And
Me
this
too.
is our last day together here in Rifle. So.
I know. We always pushed it to the end, but at the same time, it's all these things happen. It can feel chaotic, and then it just comes together. And you're obviously, this is the day that we would do this. This is probably the most beautiful day I've had in the canyon so far.
Today
Yeah,
was perfect.
it was perfect.
Perfect.
So pretty.
I know. Such a beautiful fall day. And you sent the feast, which was
Yeah.
so fun. And
That was great.
yeah, such a beautiful last day together. And
We've been here for some since. Do you remember the couple beers in fourth go on my first 13C on Fluff Boy?
Yes, I do remember that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And you were still staying in Glenwood Springs, and we went there afterwards.
Oh, I don't remember the after party.
I remember the after party at your apartment. That was like the funnest part. Oh my God. Yeah,
That's
the
great.
Fluff Boy year. That must have been, I don't
Could
even
have
know.
been that could have been that 2011 year.
That
It was
might
at the
have
end.
been, yeah, the end of 2011. Yeah, I think so.
Such a good time. So many memories
So
here.
many memories in
This
Rifle with
canyon.
you in this canyon. The canyon, oh my God, it's always going to be a special place.
Big time.
It's actually funny because I was like listening to Glennon Doyle's podcast. It's called We Can Do Hard Things. And she was interviewing Elizabeth Gilbert, Liz. And she's like one of her best friends. And they were laughing because Elizabeth was like, yeah, and then you called me like, let's prepare for our podcast interview because, you know, I want to make a document. And Elizabeth was like, Glennon, this is what we do. We talk. We don't need to organize.
Yeah, we definitely have that. Well, because their relationship is sort of like the more like not like type A person and not type A person, and like
so
sometimes
funny.
it reminds me when you first came to Spain and you were like, well, do I need this? Do I need that? Do I need whatever? And I was just like, just come, just back yourself and come, because but it definitely I have
was
that
the
side and
same.
you have that side, and
I
it
know.
drives both of us, and there's like a nice meeting in the middle, you know, like it helps the flow in that sense, because I'm going to be the one that like we'll make time, like it'll work out, and you're going to be the one that's like, what's the day? 3 weeks ahead, I've got my document ready. And I mean, thank God you have a document, because we will just talk.
I have the document and we're not going to look at it once. I'm like, here's what we're going to talk about. And you're like, just like Liz said to Glennon, was like, Isabel, this is what we do like all the time.
We literally do this all the time.
It was so cute.
but-
It just reminded me of us. And I was
know.
like, oh, that's really sweet. And I also just, like you said, because of the differences, I feel like our conversations are always extra special to me, because when you're stuck with something in life, it is helpful to have somebody understand what you're going through, but also you need a fresh perspective. And I feel like that's when I come to you is always what I get. It's like, look, Isabel, you know, this is what I would recommend not doing, relax around that. Just don't worry about this. And like, whether it's about relationships or traveling or work stuff, I feel like our conversations are always so helpful because of our differences. And you remind me a lot about of Pata, my husband, who's like the same. He's like, oh, mañana, and like, it's going to be okay. And I'm like, no, my German mind is like, no, we need to organize. And sometimes to these extremes where it's like, too much. And I love that about you, because you also help me in my relationship, because then it's like, all right, you understand both sides.
Yeah. I always, when we go through, because we definitely talk about all things, relationships or climbing or work or traveling. And it's great with the Pata stuff, because I'll always be like, well, I kind of know where he's like coming from and whatever. But it also brings perspective to me, because I am a person that will struggle with, pre-planning, or I'll leave things to the last minute. And I look at my relationships and the people I really respect and look up to. You're 100% one of those people. You've done so many amazing things and brought so many things to fruition. And when I'm feeling wanderlust or a little lost in that, I will come to you, or I'll just channel your energy of getting shit done. And the way you do it you do it in a kind way to yourself. I know you might not always feel that way, but you definitely are I couldn't do anything for 3 days. And I was X, Y, and Z, but then I had this day where I just banged it out and I had that energy. And you've always helped me also tap into my creative flow and not try. In a weird way, you don't control that at all. You're very open to the creative flow and that system. And you taught me about that a long time ago, about not trying to too much, control that, or needing a systematic approach to those things. And you're that is you. And that's what's amazing about you. And you have to find your flow and find your energy. And that's where your creativity comes from. So there's always that bouncing and back and forth that I think we both bring into each other's life. And we are quite different, but we find a commonality that feels like we're like so in sync on so many things, and it's
so
really
true.
nice.
The creative work that we do, and we'll get to that also more deeply later, but that is actually something that I think we're on the same page about. And like, I love what you just said about like, you know, when you're on, you're on, when you're off, you're off, you know, like knowing those days where you're just like, I cannot get shit done. And I feel like I did learn that pretty early on, because like, you know, starting a dance company on your own at age 25 teaches you stuff like pretty quickly, and running yourself into the ground, like throwing your back out because you're like overdoing everything. And then realizing like I have to, because of the necessity, I have to listen to my body. I have to like know when I cannot go further, when I need to stop. And I'm glad that that was like, you know, maybe information that I was able to convey and share early on, because it's real. And the creative work it is really, you know, it is really on, and like it's on you, especially when you're working for yourself. And I feel like that's something that we have also shared in common, and I definitely want to dive into that deeper. And I wanted to say, I wanted to make a comment, because like aside from our conversations, because as you said earlier, we don't always hang out. Like sometimes so much time passes. We always know it's all good. We're always connected. We can always reach out if we really want to or have to or need to, but there's no pressure. And then we have the WhatsApp messages that are always like the sort of the bridge in between. Like every once in a while you'll get this like 10, 20-minute message or longer, just giving, you know, venting. And like I went back and listened to some of those messages again, to prepare for this podcast. I'm like, I want to feel inspired. So I started going back to some of the messages. And one that I found was right as I was launching the podcast at the beginning of the year. And you were just like, oh, I'm so psyched you're going for it. That's awesome. And I listened to the whole thing, and it was a good reminder of like how I felt when I was doing that, because, you know, this summer has been a bit chaotic for me. I've been like very wrapped up in logistics and moving and trying to figure out what's next. And I was like, yeah, you know, like this is something that's alive. And now I'm getting sort of like back into it again, and not to be hard on myself, because I definitely have been a bit hard on myself this summer, and I should take my own advice on what I just said. You know, when it's not flowing, it's not flowing, and you can't force it. It's a creative project. It has its own body, its own life, its own heartbeat, and, you know, everything goes in cycles. And just recently, I'm like, okay, I'm recording again. I'm excited about sharing these stories again, and it has to feel right.
Yeah. Well, it's so great that we have those voicemails. I mean, some people that don't do the voicemail thing, they're always like, what? They're like, how what do you have to talk about for 15 minutes? And I'm like, you'd like plenty. Like sometimes I have to cut myself off. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. And then I like write a text after my like 12-minute voicemail that's like, please, there's no rush. Listen to it on your own time. Like, and it is crazy, because I can't do the whole like, hi, I'm Colette and I'm on my Instagram FaceTime. Like I can't talk to that stuff, but to my girlfriends on WhatsApp, I can go on a monologue of what's going on in my life. And because it is and it's to me such a blessing that we're in different time zones, different places. People are so busy with all the things they do, like the whole anxiety of like, let me call you and get on the call, which is always good to do sometimes too. But
every
like
once in a while,
when we're people that like are okay with the voicemails, like we can just catch up when we can, and we can figure out, we can really just let people know where we're at, what's going on, and we can just catch right up where we were. And like, it is like a really special thing. And yeah, there's like gems in there that are like, oh my God, like that point of view or that saying or whatever has just like propelled me through like this really tough whatever. And it's like, so it would be so great if we were, sometimes we do that a lot. I wish we were just having a glass of wine together and talking about
there
this.
are those moments.
Yeah. But at the same time, you're just like so happy that we can connect and get a point of view from somebody that we like really respect and, you know, really care about us.
And it is funny because I do the same thing. I'm like, I'm sorry, this message is getting so long. And never, ever do I feel like, oh, that message is long. Like I'm like, ooh, I got a message from Colette. It's like my little, like my personalized podcast. It's like you get to decide when you listen. You get to decide when and if you want to reply. If you don't reply, there's never any hard feelings. And we both know, like, if there's an emergency, okay, now I really need you.
Yeah.
And like, please get back to me or call me me or whatever, you know. But other than that, it's like fair game. Like just like
it's just like I want to keep you in my life. I want you to know what's going on, and I want to. Sometimes I'm asking you specific things. Sometimes I'm just letting you know, like, and it's just the way we stay connected. And it's been so nice that we have that.
Yeah. WhatsApp. Oh my gosh. Thank you. WhatsApp. Thank you. We should
sponsor us, WhatsApp.
Sponsor us, please. Yes, I know. I should definitely ask them. I think that's a great idea.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
They're like, dude, we do not need to. It's okay. Everybody does that. One other message that I listened to, and I would actually start with that topic because I have so many things. I'm like, I want to talk about this and this, and you're like, yeah, we'll just like get to the things. But I want to start with this message that you left because I feel like it gives like a really good background about like not only how we met and how our lifestyles kind of converged, but also just like, you know, some of the differences between Europe and the United States that we both have experienced very, very strongly over the years. And you more than me, because, you know, you're the one who actually got me to Spain in 2014. I mean, I left Germany and I never really went back. I became basically a workaholic and started my dance company. And after I met you, you were just like, dude, like you need to come climb in Spain. It's freaking amazing. And luckily got me to, you know, go for like a 2-week trip, which I was like, 2 weeks? Are you kidding me? And you're like, girl, you should be coming for like 3 months, which is hilarious. But anyway, in that voice message, you were getting ready to go to Spain, and it had been a hot second because I think COVID. And you were like, I talked to Daila the other day, and she was just like, so tranquila. She was like, so chill. I want you to remember those because like it was like birds in the background. She's like, Tia, está todo muy tranquila, and like it's all good. And you were like trying to get ready, and you were like, oh, that's right.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
And it was that
like,
happens every time we go.
So many times I've gone, and like it's a lesson. It's so funny when lessons you just have to learn them again and again. You're like, wow, the human mind, like not fast evolving sometimes. Like, geez. But yeah, I mean, from my very first trips there was I just remember so much force, you know, especially like, you know, as just typical American stuff, like you dot your I's and you cross your T's and you want to make sure everything's aligned. You're about to go across the world to a country you've never been to, you know, like got to have all the things set. And I just remember showing up and like, number one, the things that you have set, like don't really come together the right way. and you know, all the things were closed. You like couldn't get food. And I remember being a kind of new Daila, not really well. This is many years before the message we were talking about. But she's just being like, it's fine. Like, you know, kind of like, no pasa nada, mañana, like things. And I'm like, no, but like we have to buy food to like whatever. And they're just like, no, just go to the bar and get a bocadilla. Like just do, like it'll work out. And we're just going climbing and they're having a barbecue. There's plenty of food. And it doesn't work out until you just relax into it and you realize it is working out. But it's like the whole time you're forcing, no, it's got to look like this. It's got to be like this. It's got to be all these things. And it's like, why even go somewhere else if you're basically trying to recreate your life in the States that you're apparently trying to take a trip from, but you just that's all you know to a degree. But it's like not until you lean into it and like let that kind of unknown happen or let things sort of just work out on their own or let another just style and pace of life like happen to you that you're like, oh, there are really good things about this. And I mean, I spent many years kind of battling that circumstance and it ties into climbing too and climbing lifestyle. Like, what are you really doing? You're just working odd jobs and they're just going climbing forever. And like, you know, in the USA, people are like, what are you doing? You know, you're just climbing, right? And then you're over in Spain and everyone's like, sick. You're like over here and you get to climb and like you're just doing some writing
Nobody
for the internet.
you.
No, they're just like,
oh,
that's
sweet,
awesome.
You're only staying for like 6 months. Why aren't you just staying here for the whole year?
Yeah, they're like, you're nailing it, you
Yeah.
know? And you're just like,
there's no
wow.
judgment.
Yeah, it's such a different perspective due to like history and culture and the way people have lived there for, you know, how many hundreds of years. And our society and system here that says you have to do X, Y, and Z to be happy and be successful, which I'm pretty sure we've debauched that in a lot of different ways. And then again, there's COVID, there's lockdown, there's like all the things that came with that were really hard for many people. And it was just coming to this time when I think I was considering going back again, and I'm all revved up, like I've got to do this and I'm going to plan that. I got to pack all the things and just be ready to like go to Spain,
and crash some shit.
I don't know.
Just like all my shoes, I've got like 4 tank tops, different colors, like all my new shoes and like the robes.
Yeah, and I get on the
like
phone.
sleepless nights before you go.
Dude, calling her, and she was just like, I mean, and Dila has an upside, don't get me wrong. She has a like, I'm going side that she taps into. But, she's from Canary Islands, like literally the most chill Spain in Spain, like whatever. And she just gets on the phone. Her voice is she's like, hey, yeah, I've just been here in Tirana, like just chilling. And in the background, I hear like the birds and the spray. I mean, you can like smell the like cherry blossoms blooming. Like it's just going off, or the almond trees, I guess. They don't have cherry blossoms, I'm not sure. But, she's just so chill. And I just immediately, my stress level is like going down. And to remember again, like, yeah, dude, that's also the point. And like, what's this fight for? And it's very much our system here. Like we are very much like a fighting society, and that people are fighting a lot for our basic needs, right? It's not like we just enjoy it. Like we are part of a system that creates those steps, right? Like you have to have money to have an education, to have healthcare, to have like your general needs met. It's super stressful, and I'm not saying that like in Spain, it's all like everybody's
not
living,
everything is perfect.
Of course not. But there is like some level of that old world where people have sort of let go, or they're really unable to even maybe achieve that stuff to the degree that we talk about it here, or they're not fed that story.
It's not the system that is actually really in place. Like here's like very much about innovation and like like you were saying earlier, like the legacy that you leave and like the productivity and what are you doing with your life, and it really matters. It really
everything's
matters.
about what you do and doing. And I think as much as stuff that comes out, research that comes out is saying like we are not giving enough time to just being, to resting, to we can do more if we rested more, but we don't follow that here. And then it's really nice to maybe, and I'm not saying Spain is that place. I mean, Dila is that person. She has like literally taught me how to chill. Like she would get mad at me. We'd go to the beach and I'd be like, well, what's next? She's like, this is it. Girl, this is it. We're at the beach all day. I'm like, well, do we have like books? Do we have like stuff? Like,
are we doing yoga?
Are we going to like do something? She's like,
yoga?
no, dude. She's like, you need to learn how to chill. Like you need to learn how to chill. Yes. And I was like, wow,
God,
like that is a thing. And I'm not even that high strung of an American.
You are. Like we just talked about this. You're the chill friend that I have.
Right. Put me next to a Canarian and I'm like type A out the door, So it is interesting, and it is something that I've think that many people can benefit from like letting some of that go and being like, what is all the hustle really about? And what are we really getting from that? Because I'm talking to someone across the world who has done incredible things and she's done but at the end of the day, she's just living her life as she needs to. And she's just to be and just reminding me to be. Like maybe that's what she does.
Just to be. It's so
okay
interesting because I feel like even with my family and even with some of my friends, like just being, I feel like I have to justify myself. I feel like I have to explain myself. Like, what are you doing? I'm doing some deep listening. Like, my therapist understands that because he's telling me to do that.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, just tell your friends and your family, like, you're just doing some deep listening and it feels very empowering. I'm like, yeah, but nobody speaks that language. Again, like you said, in Europe, I feel so well received when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm working on this podcast. And I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Sick.
And then I'm like, are you getting paid for that? That's the first question I get here. I'm like, oh, yeah. So is that your new job? It's like, does it matter right now? Yeah. The fame or I'm getting ranked?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's different. And again, that's that cultural shift. I remember a partner of mine many years ago who was from Scandinavia. And hit one comment one day, he said, Americans are obsessed with money. That was his comment. And I was like, well, okay, there's some truth to that. I was like, but have you ever questioned why they're obsessed with money? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you have to think about the systems in place that make us hyper obsessed with that, and the values, not the values that we're taught for a long time, and then the things that money brings us. Like here, you have to have resources, like we were saying, to have everything. There's no safety net. There's no like,
safety net. It's
I'm like,
very
this dude, I'm
insecure.
like, you got a PhD for free. So yeah, you don't have to obsess about money.
Same
but
in
guess
Germany.
what? If
Yeah.
you're here and you don't have the financial things, or you don't have the grants, or you don't have the whatever, or the resources, or the family system, yeah, it's a big deal. So it was really hard for him and for both of us to sort of, because I remember, or he didn't even say Americans. He said, I think you're obsessed with money. And I was like, whoa.
Okay, now we're taking it
now
a
we're
whole
like,
nother
I'm like,
step.
you're talking about the girl who like literally like took off with like whatever crapshoot jobs, like barely making it work.
Oh my
And you're telling me you
God.
think I'm obsessed with money? I wouldn't be here, you know? So, but it to him, because I was constantly like, well, where is that? How are we going to do that? And what's the money from? And
The hustling.
The
yeah.
hustle, because that you have to do the hustle here, and that's
Yeah.
where the fight is from.
Especially
It's
in
where the
creative
hustle.
work.
Of course, yeah, and just it is. I mean, a few people have a ride here, but most people in this country are hustling, and they're hustling all the time. And it's, you know, not just because they like it. It's because that's what, you know, that's what is there. And obviously some people find more joy in the reality of our situation than others. But it is interesting to get that perspective in another culture, in another land, where they're sort of saying stuff like that. And you're going, oh, okay, let's go a little deeper. I mean, I found myself quite defensive of the States. And that was one of the great points that you brought up to me really early on, because I was sort of because also my parents are British. And so I was first generation American. And I think we found that in common kind of early, like having a tie to Europe. Obviously, you were born in Germany. But I remember you saying to me really early on, I've never felt more accepted than in the States. Mm-hmm. And I was blown away, because I was sort of on the horse of like, oh, the U.S. and all the racism and all the bigotry and all the pushback and the way we deal with immigration, like rah, rah, rah. And you were like, actually, you know, in Europe, there's the nationalism so hard that even though I lived in Germany till I was 18, because my mom was American, I was never German enough. And the more time I spent in Europe, I felt that and I saw it. And I saw that nationalism and that kind of smallness and that sort of protectiveness on the culture
Very
to not
much.
let it out. And it was an eye-opening thing of like, and for sure, it's specific. We're white people. My parents were white. They spoke English. You know, it was a different person coming in, you know, as a first generation. But the kind of acceptance, and when you see multicultural like communities here, there is kind of an acceptance that can happen on this scale that I hadn't really thought about and recognized. It definitely was a little shift for me. And it's just one of the great things about traveling and meeting people from other places.
And seeing the differences and seeing what you like. And this is another thing that you and I talk about is like, you know, because again, you and I have been going back and forth quite a bit now for the last decade. And I think you, every time we go there and every time we come back, we have this check-in like, oh, I'm back here. Holy shit. This is how people do it. Okay, I have to remember to keep these values that I really loved about that place and bring them here, and vice versa.
And vice
Right.
versa,
And
yeah.
mostly, I think for me, the coming back here is a little bit harder because you do land in this like harsher environment. But going back to what you said, absolutely. I think there is that beauty about America that I have always appreciated, like the diversity, the chaos in its own way, because there are so many people from so many countries and so many immigrants. And so as hard and harsh as it can feel, it can also feel very welcoming and just like, oh, you're from Germany? Welcome. Cool. Now you're part of this, you know? And I appreciate
This is how we
that
do
you-
it. Make
this
some
is-
money.
yeah. Make some money. Now get your fucking health care taken care of, girl. Because
Get
you
your
don't
shit
have
in
any.
order.
And if
Yeah.
you like get in a wreck, you're fucked. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, thank you. I'm
Okay,
welcome.
making the
All right.
notes.
Yeah, making the
Got my spreadsheet.
yeah, I know. I'm like the German girl that's like, oh God, I got to do this, I got to do that. And then other people are like, why are you doing that? That's like adult
Yeah,
shit. Like the other day I was
totally.
at the climbing gym, total tangent.
Yeah.
And these like ladies are all talking. I'm having a great time in Grand Junction, Christy and her friends. And And we're talking about changing tires and like changing to winter tires and taking off bike racks in the winter. And I'm like, yeah, it's like, isn't that something that you know, they're like, you do that kind of shit? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I'm just like, well, this is like, and I'm like, oh my God, Coletta's right. Pata's right. I'm like so overthinking the things.
But
It's
if you
like,
were in Scandinavia, you would get fined if you
exactly.
didn't have
In Germany, you
tires
get
on your car.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
I'm like, I'm in Scandinavia, like, oh my God, all the snow, whatever. And they're like, dude, chill. Like, we have planned for this, and everybody has planned for this. And so therefore it all works because we're all on the same page. And it's like either incentivized or whatever. And we give people means to that. Because here you can't make everybody change their tires because nobody has the money to change all their tires, but you give people a system where they can like, that's something that's part of your deal.
It's more like integrated.
It's more integrated, and it's like, yeah, everyone does it because it's safe for everyone, and we're going to give everybody the means to be able to do that. You
Here
know,
you have to really be self-sufficient, which is why I have so many Google Docs and spreadsheets.
perfect, nailing it.
I'm like, I have a to-do.
Don't know how to
I
survive
have
this
literally
long.
in my Google Drive, I have a to-do USA, to-do Spain, and then to-do Pata Isa,
Yeah.
which he never looks at. I'm like, did you look at the Google Doc? I'm like, which Google Doc? I'm like, oh my God, I've shared
can't
it with
find
you
him.
10.
I can't never
he
find
cannot
him.
find
I
him.
can't find him
I'm like,
either.
I've shared with, look, go to the shared folder.
I'm really
Oh my
scared of those
God.
like intense meetings when I started the production company, and I'm definitely got part of that production company because I was like, I'm really bad at like the paperwork. I don't want to deal with the like contracts and stuff. And the other women involved were so much better at that. Not that they wanted to, but they were better. And it was always the beginning of the meetings like, okay, you guys have the Google Doc pulled up? And I'm like, I'm always someone like, I just can't seem to. Like, I swear it was there, and then now it's like not in the, like, where does it go? What folder is it in? Is it in the shared ones? Is it in the my
Well,
ones?
it's in
Is
the
it-
shared one until you add it to your drive and put it into where you, whichever
Oh,
folder
see,
you
I
want to do.
think I didn't know those other steps.
Oh my God.
I'm still
Like my dancers. I'm like, guys, did you get this?
just also aging myself.
They're like trying to pull it up on their
I
phone. I'm
know.
like, for crying out
Just,
loud.
guys.
Take your laptop, pull it up, add it to your drive. Jesus
Add it.
Christ.
Just add it,
Just
people.
add it. Just
Okay.
add it and you'll
I'm
find
going
it.
through them and adding them all.
Just
make
adding,
a-
and just add them to your drive. And then Pata's always like, I don't know. I mean, it's just like so ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
Which is why things don't always work in Spain. And this is another thing that you
Things
know we're
do not work
cracking each
there.
other up. This is years ago, and I think we came up with like a really pretty funny analogy of like when we land there, it feels like you're landing in a like bowl of molasses, and you're trying to move really fast, and like you're just like stuck in honey, and you're like, I'm gonna run errands, I'm gonna do these things, because here. You have your list. Doesn't matter what city, what town. You're like
Bang 'em
Target,
out.
Walmart, Walgreens. Bang them out. Bank. Blah blah blah. And at the end of the day, you're just crossing shit off that list, and you're just getting it done, and it feels
That
so
high
freaking good. You're just like, yeah, and now I'm gonna get some like
Dopamine
like,
hits.
so, yes, and now I'm gonna get some like clothes I don't need at Target, and like some chips, and like
And fast
Coke.
food, whatever.
Yeah,
just
it
like,
doesn't
do I
matter.
want
It's like-
Asian food? Do I
Yeah,
want
just-
Mexican? Do I want pizza? Do I want just like country style fried
It's
chicken?
all open,
It's all
24/7.
open.
It's all good. You're taking it care. You take care of it, And then you come to Spain, and you're like, okay, you have your list. You drive to from Coronadea de Rios or Tarragona, Barcelona, whatever, and you get there, and you're like, everything is closed.
All
Siesta,
closed.
like literally
Holiday.
from 2 to like 9 p.m. I mean, no, that's exaggerated, but like seriously,
I know. And then it's just about learning the system.
Yes.
And then I remember when I finally was there and I like knew the days, I knew
Yes,
the
and
way,
the
and then you're
times.
just like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just like it's different. There
It's
is
like
a
you
system.
said, you have to go into it and let it
and
form
people
you.
don't get us wrong. People hustle in Spain. I have never seen people work harder, and so it's like I don't want to paint the picture of like everything's closed and whatever all the time, but it's just different. And then we're trying to insert American do stuff all the time to a people that are like, no, we do it from this time to this time, and we take these times off, and you need to be prepared for that, especially the 4-day
beautiful.
holidays.
Yeah, I'm saying
and
the
it's
4 day-
nice, and you're
it's
like,
beautiful that Sundays
hell
things are closed.
yeah.
I'm like, these people should rest.
People should chill. It's just the point that like people are working 3 to 4 jobs. They're working all day in a place, and then they're Ubering all night. And then there is this like culture of like, we are rewarding that, and that's like your self-sacrifice is so good, but like what are we giving up for those things?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like really cool to go to a place that's like, we're just sitting around on these little chairs and we're drinking some beers and everyone is hanging out all day. We're
Yeah.
just chilling. And
Yeah.
you're like, that is important. It is like
Yeah.
important for people to chill. It's important for you to be with your
Community
family.
and family in
Yeah.
Europe is definitely a high priority. And I think maybe one of the biggest priorities that
Yeah.
I find is there. And
Yeah.
even in Germany, which is a very efficient country, comparatively speaking, to Spain, because my dad did have a job in Spain. My brother was born there, and he went wild on the inefficiencies there as well. So he's definitely from a country that is a little bit more, but even in Germany, family is number one.
I mean, Scandinavia is super efficient, and like for a month, at least 3 weeks out of the summer, doesn't matter how big your business is, doesn't matter if you're the top, chiropractor guy or doctor or teacher, you take 3 weeks to a month off a year. And most people too. They take the summer off. They put the sign on the door, we're closed.
Yeah.
And there is definitely like they understand and believe in the rest and the time off that you need to reset, and that it makes a more productive place in the long run.
Yeah.
And we just get very caught up in what did you have at the end of the 24 hours?
Right.
And it's like, if we don't look at this stuff big picture, what kind of society are we creating? And I think we can already, we can talk about a lot of things that aren't working well here because of that, because of that
would be
constant
going down
push.
like a really deep rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So one other thing, going back to our lifestyles, which our lifestyles have allowed us to, aside from the fact that we are, from Europe and we have naturally just kind of been going back and forth because of our families, but we have also chosen this lifestyle because we could have also just been like, okay, America, this is it. We're doing it. We're like doing the thing. We're going to college. We're taking a career. You and I, in our own ways, have like chosen to actually then explore this like more, I want to call it vagabond. Vagabond is like, maybe a little extreme, but lifestyle that is very, free. It brings us to these beautiful places such as Spain, and even within the United States, our van life. We have storage units. We do this moving around. And, if you live in a van, you really have to be a minimalist. And we were talking about how we really deep at heart want to be minimalist. But then I was like, yeah, it's really hard to be a minimalist when you love shoes. Yeah. And Nick's like, oh my God. Like the whole minimalism. So then we have all these things
like
in our,
stuff.
vans and our storage units with our parents, and it's chaotic and it's beautiful. Again, all the freedom to move and explore and experience these beautiful places.
But we're not doing it with a backpack, girl.
We're not doing it with a backpack.
We're not doing it with a backpack. I've always had this dream of just like getting on a flight with just like a little tote bag and like a paper and just like going somewhere with that. And it's like, I mean, I don't know how it would work because there's no way I would do that. But yeah, definitely have been just trugging like 2 huge duffels just full of whatever. Because I'm like, how do people do it? I have my climbing stuff. For my work stuff, I have camera equipment and gear that I need. And then, I have my own shoe session. And like, what's the weather going to be like? I don't know. Like, it could be hot. It could be cold. It could be like climbing stuff. I always want at least one outfit that I can go into a city and not feel like a total grub, because that's just who I am. And so, but that's.
And then it's like my dad's 80th in March, and I have to have a nice dress and all these things, but I need to have a suit.
Yeah.
That shit's stressful.
That's stressful.
You have all this stuff.
I know. And you don't want to rebuy it, because the worst thing is to buy something you already have that's like sitting in a box somewhere, or buying something and literally putting it in storage so long that it goes out of fashion.
Yeah.
I've had that.
Oh, that's the worst.
I'm like,
I know.
I never even wore this when it was cool.
These short dresses that were in fashion years ago, and I still have them because I'm like, but wait,
they're
going to
come back around.
Anyways, but like,
it is a thing.
I'm a month
it is
out
a
to fly to Spain, and I'm already stressed about that. I'm like, is it gonna? I'm already stressed about it. And as you said, once you get there, you're like, it's fine.
Yeah, it's
You've
fine.
got your stuff, and everybody's always. And the European minimalism, that's one thing that you said. They live with so little, and we do come with that a little bit of an obsession. But it's also real, because we're like basically moving there for a while. You know? So you do want to be comfortable.
Yeah, you want to have your stuff.
To have all the things.
And there's also
you.
a sense of like, will I be able to get and like, and a lot of times you going to, even as, kind of remote off places, and you're like, number one, nobody would, if you're that far remote, no one would wear that thing anyways. And you're going to just buy some local thing. And number two, like, you can get almost, especially in Europe, you can get all that stuff anyways. Not to say that we should just keep buying and like not used.
it's not the end of the
it's not the
world.
end if you can only have your one bag and like you think, oh, I have a night out. Like you can find a little
I
something and it will be fine.
But I'm still gonna bring 2.
it's fair. I always bring 2.
I know. And also like this time around, I am staying for quite a stretch, which is kind of gonna bring me to the next thing because the opposite of vagabond is home base, and I think we're both at this age in our lives where like we're thinking, oh, that could be. It sounds attractive.
It's its own journey.
It is. I mean, we've definitely chosen something very different. It's its own little thing.
Yeah.
But like just like this idea of. Yeah, having, oh my gosh, this was funny the other day. We're like, just your own room for your own shit. Can you imagine just having your room?
We've been talking about looking for houses and so much of that is so scary for me because I've never owned a house and I've never like really gone down that route because of all my reasons that I think it would hold me back from traveling or hurting my job or like whatever, financially, like all the things that it's really overwhelming. But I've really been stepping into it more, getting more comfortable with that. And it is something that like is starting to be like, yes, I really like would love and probably really need this thing at this point in my life. But then, yeah, when I really think about it, I'm like, there's going to be this one room. It's going to be just like, I can make it be, because also my partner is very like together and quite a minimalist and organized. And I mean, he likes his stuff, but it's like not comparatively. And I'm like an exploder and my mom calls it containment. She's like, does he know about your containment, that you should just like contain all your things? It's a word. It's like a style of Colette. And she's like, so I do think about that, having this one room that can just be my overgrown closet with all my stuff and I can organize it like I want, or it can be messy one day and like it's not affecting anybody. It's just
and you just have
me and my
in there.
Yeah,
it does sound
sounds
wonderful.
so nice.
It does, and I think we are getting to that point a little bit. And I mean, you know, Pata has this house in Spain now, and we're going to start spending more and more time there. And it does feel like the only home base that we have right now. So it's like this really old house in Spain, like tiny little rooms, lots of stairs, high house, but like not that much space. And like that one little bedroom in that corner, sure enough, that could just be like mine.
I know.
The home base thing does sound kind of nice right now.
Sounds really nice.
Just like having that home base. And then you can still do the moving around.
Like right now, we're in a van and we've both been in a van. It's a built out, what is this one?
This is a Ford Transit.
Yeah, Transit. Same.
Yeah.
So nice. Well done. And there's 2 of us in it. We've been in it since May. And
That's
I've got
a long time.
It's a long time. And I've got my drawers that are my drawers. And there's this one nook drawer where it's that sort of thing where like you have to like stack this stuff on top. So if you didn't think your few days or week through or whatever, and it's impossible. You have to always pull everything out to get down into that thing. And there was something down there recently that was like, that was in there. But something that I was like, okay, this is a thing that can be stored at the bottom. There's no way I'm going to need this for like ever, you know? And then of course it's like the next day it's like, where's that? Da da da. And you're like, oh yeah. Of course, we need that thing. And then there you go. And then and I'm like, how do people stay organized? Because I'm like, how can you pull all this shit out and then like put it all in perfectly again? Like it's insane. It's so much energy to try to stay organized in those tiny spaces. But you also have to, or else it is total chaos.
It is. It's like I feel like van life is very simple and it's really beautiful and it has its own like allure for like so many reasons. But I also realize even living alone in this van, which I think this van is really much more perfect for just one person.
I think you can get away with a lot.
You can get away with a lot.
Yeah.
I spent, like that month in Waco living with Natalie and I was very comfortable. But like I do feel like
if I had 7 drawers like I see here, I would be fine. But I got 3, girl. 3.
And this whole box is just like the everything box. Everything just like
it's like
open
a junk
it,
drawer.
just like put it in there.
Yeah.
But I do realize like a lot of time is spent. Your days are simple.
Sure.
And even like your lifestyle is simple, but you do spend a lot of time organizing, putting away dishes right away, doing things right away, because otherwise your shit is all over the place.
All over. Yeah. I remember one trip in Sayus. It was when I first kind of before you came in the spring, or maybe right after 2014, when I basically went over to Europe and I ended up living there for 4 years. But the first summer, I had stayed through the spring, and I kept just getting jobs and making it work. And I was just living on the road, like climbing style. And I had gotten this caravan in Sayus, and I don't know what my scene was. I mean, obviously, I was just kind of in my own zone. I didn't have like a consecutive partner. Nobody was really around. I didn't have a lot of socializing. I was just kind of hermiting and editing and like climbing with like this one random person. It was, I don't know. And I remember Dyla just like showed up. Like she just surprised me and was just there. And she just came over sort of unannounced. And I think the place was like in such distress. And she really was like, she was like, Tia, she's like, are you okay? Like, is everything okay? And I was like, no, I'm like, it's fine. I'm just like, it looks extra messy. I'm sure it's really bad. I've just been like editing a lot. And I just didn't do I'm like, I'm fine. I really am. She was like, we need to like get you out. You need to like see some people. Talk. She was like seriously worried about me for a second.
Oh my God, that is so cute, Tia.
Yeah, she's like, are you okay?
Like, are you okay? Oh my God, that is so
I'm like, oh yeah,
funny.
I'm just like kind of sitting into my disorder here, but I'm fine.
Oh my gosh, it is so funny how people can exist in that to me, because like if I were to edit,
sure, you wouldn't be able to.
I was in Waco like podcast recording and like editing, and that was like my start kind of the thing. And I was like, everything looks great. All right. If there was something, I'll just put that away really quick.
Yeah. I think I start like that, but then day 3, it's like, I don't know what's happened. I feel like I probably just ate something and like put it to the side.
The changes do happen.
But for sure, like there is that like, especially when you're sharing spaces, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to do hard work with like too much chaos, but I can survive in quite a bit more chaos than most people.
And sometimes I feel like I do that until I get to this point, and then I like clean it and it feels really good. And that's the thing about living with somebody else. If you're on your own rhythm,
yes, you know that's
chaos
coming.
Is fine. Yeah, and you know it's coming. But if it's like somebody else's shit, you're just like, clean up your shit.
Yeah, that needs to go now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Talking about the whole lifestyle thing, because one of the things that is happening for me right now is I made a pretty big important decision. I'm taking a step back from Ascendance. I don't want to call it like it's the end of Ascendance, because I do truly believe like Ascendance Project has kind of a life of its own. Like I've taken breaks from it. I've gotten back to it. I've been very grateful for it. I've been doing it for 17 years. I'm very burnt out. I'm tired, and COVID financially just kind of made it really obvious to me that I need to take it a step back. And so the house in Spain is finished. I'm really psyched to kind of do some nesting there and sort of, see what's next. But it really reminded me of, because you were really there for me through that process. Like I remember again, the WhatsApp messages. I'm like, I went from fear and feeling of failure and feeling of obligation towards my dancers to like, I really feel like I need to take this break, and to the point where I was like, I'm done. I really need to just like step back, and who knows what that means. It could come back one day, but like right now I just can't do this. I can't do the hustling. I can't do the working for very little money. And it really reminded me, because that is another message I went back and listened to from you from this summer. I think it was in August. And you're like, Isabel, you sound so crystal clear. This is a full body yes. And this is something that I would love to talk about today as well with you, because I think we have learned and grown and talked about listening to our bodies, listening to our intuition. And it's like, tricky, because there's the technique of knowing how to even listen, because we can hear, but like listen and like going back to what you said, being just to be, so that you can go deeper, to like really go in there. And the body language, like the what is it doing? Okay, so there's still fear around it, there's still anxiety, to the point where like it evolved over the months, over the summer, to like, I'm fucking done. I am so doneski. Like I really do not want to do this right now. I need time for me. I need to figure out what's next, and I am tired.
Yeah, and I remember you saying like, if somebody turned around tomorrow, and I think we try to find our indicators of that like full body yes, because I think we do analyze and we like give space for things, and I'm not, and you're not either. You are a more definitive person, but like you are also open and like listening to all the sides of everything. So we're like, well, this means this and that means that. And like, what, like, where am I at in that? Like, what are my actual feelings? Yeah. What is it about the fear? Is it about the feel like I'm giving up? Do I really want to let this go? Because if it's is it gone forever? You know,
Right,
like
and
all
what if
those
I
things.
get a gig next
Yeah.
year and somebody emails
But
me.
I
you know?
remember your specific thing. You were like, if someone hit me up tomorrow and was like, you have to put on a show like in the next week or something, you're like, that feeling, I was like, no, absolutely not. And you're like, that to me was like this, like crystal, I'm done with this. For now, forever, for whatever, but I'm done. Because like
Yep.
if someone brought that up to me, and yeah, I do think it's like, I mean, we've talked about that. I mean, maybe as women that we're kind of societally like made to be like the kind of empaths just through our gender. Maybe it's just personalities. Like I do think we're both very empathic people. And like, I am definitely a person that does a lot of seeing all the sides, you know, and I enjoy that, but it can be hard to be definitive if you're like, well, in US they do it like this, and in Spain they do it like this, and like you can kind of do whatever you want. It's like doesn't maybe give you a clear answer sometimes. And when it comes to those big choices like change of career or letting a long time project go, I mean, it was a little bit like that with the kind of end of Never Not. You know, it was a group decision, but you know, how much you hold on to these things that are maybe it's like everything around you is telling you it's time. And how do you listen to yourself to stop thinking about everybody else involved or how it affects that kind of group and what really feels right to you. And I definitely struggle to know those answers quickly. And I definitely do use girlfriends that I trust, you know, my community who I know or have my best interest. And I sort of, sometimes I'm not looking for an answer through them. I use them
the
as
narrative,
like,
the conversation.
yeah, for me to like say my things out loud. And so that then I can internalize and find the answer for myself.
It like becomes clear. It's like a sounding board almost. Yeah. It's not like they're telling you what to do, but they're just kind of like, I hear and this and
Yeah.
and they know you, so they kind of give you this like instant feedback of
Sure. And sometimes saying stuff out loud is like the craziest thing
So-
too.
I know,
It's like
it's so
I've been thinking,
helpful.
I haven't said this out loud, and just like having like a
it's like
safe
the courage,
person
and
to say it out.
I feel like I've said things out loud to you, even on WhatsApp voice message, where I'm like,
I haven't
wow,
really
Colette,
said
like this is actually really nice. I'm saying it out loud. It seems like that's what I kind of answered my own question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, I just like listening
Yeah.
to you going through the whole circle.
Had to go over here
Oh,
and
yeah.
over there and then
Yeah.
back. Yeah, because I mean, at the end, it is only our decision to make, right? Because
Right.
it's our life and our choice and everything. No one's going to tell you what job you should not take or what relationship you should be in or whatever. I mean, at the end, you have to make those calls. But it's human nature to want outside influence or
And
to
acceptance.
Yeah.
This was another podcast episode I listened to with Glennon Doyle, and I can't remember who her guest was, but the full body yes, the full body no, and the in-betweens. And the in-betweens can be very difficult. I know you and I've talked about like different job opportunities, should I take it, should I not? And that just takes time. It's like a brewing process. It's like, you know.
And knowing yourself more, and I think like this will go into like our trusting our bodies and like learning as we've gotten older to like trust those instincts, but learning, you know, through therapy or whatever books you've read or whatever. But I mean, a good example of what we're talking about, like indecisiveness. I mean, a lot of that is like can be a stress response. So you're going, what kind of stress response do I have? There was a great article I read about the kind of like overproductive stress response and then the underproductive stress response. And like people get labeled as being overproductive or underproductive, but actually a lot of it can just be how you're reacting to stress. So maybe you have a big decision coming up. For me, through some of that learning, I realized, oh, I'm a person that kind of freezes. I'm like, I don't know what to do. There's all these options and da-da-da. So I tend to not act because I'm actually in a stressed state. So understanding when we're triggered, understanding when we're stressed, understanding what happens for us recognizing that in the body, recognizing our patterns. And then, and there's other people that are kind of like, I mean, COVID was a great example. All the workout videos, all the doers, right? Those are people that in that high stress mode, they're the ones that are like, we're doing this, we're doing that. They're super proactive because that's how they deal with the stress.
Stress.
They're like, we're just going to start making plans.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so there's, that's one aspect of it. But it's like, what kind of, I think just as we get older and as we do that internal work about how we react to things, what kind of person we are, why we've made the decisions that we've made, and like what holds us up on those things, what's really happening internally for us and why, and then recognizing those patterns and sort of being kind to ourselves about, I probably won't in a stressful situation ever be the person that's like, the red pill, I might be like, ooh, they both have good sides. Like, let's think about it. Is there a purple one? Like, I don't know. Give me a day. Let me talk to 5 girlfriends about it.
I'm definitely the overreactor.
You'll be like, red one, let's just go. And
well, let's do this. I mean, I was thinking like podcast classes during COVID. Granted, I was still drinking wine while I was doing that, but
proactive
wine drinking.
I was just drinking wine and being like, I should do, and listening to a lot. I was listening to a lot.
No, the listening is good. No, for sure.
But not
and I
acting.
think, but that's something that I have had to learn over the years. And you mentioned therapy, for sure. Therapy has helped me to stop, and I've come up with this motto for myself, anyways, because I am more of an overdoer. When in doubt, do nothing. The joy in things, and this is something you said to me the other day. It's like you can do all these things, but the joy lies in with really being with it. Again, going back to the human being, just the being, not the doing, and I think that is something that has taken me a hot second to learn. And it's a generational thing in the sense that our parents, no matter where they were from, definitely didn't have the luxury, and we live in a world where there's no instant threat. The fact that I don't have my next career step figured out does not mean that I'm going to be hungry tomorrow.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept that kind of the generations that didn't have as much of the eye. And then for me, it I get a little triggered because I think about how much kind of right now in the States, I feel like there's so much me, and it's like, what does that balance look like of doing stuff for the collective good, but not doing it to the point that you're a robot and you have to erase your individual needs and care and just sign up for the big machine, right? Which is kind of like that German philosophy. At least in Scandinavia, I felt like it was like that. Everyone's got a thing to do and you got to be part of the deal. And if you're not, you're kind of being selfish and an asshole a little bit. And I definitely understand that, to keep a machine going, we all need to, everybody's got to kind of be doing their part, at least in the way that it works for them. And there is this hardcore individualistic side of the U.S. right now. And that doesn't feel super healthy, but it's also we can't, the idea of just erasing that obviously isn't healthy for people either. So it would be my idea that if you were a happier, healthier person able to tap into your internal stuff, you would be able to give more to the collective good.
Which is what happened this summer, where I gave into the fact that my life is moving in logistics and just all these moving parts, and I cannot give to the podcast right now. And I'm not saying with my podcast, I'm bringing so much to, great stuff to the world. But I'm saying it is something that I hope to contribute with. And now, naturally...
you've been contributed to by podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
thanks.
Just to say.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And now that I have taken that little break, I naturally did get back to this fire of yes, I want to hear these people's stories. And then it came back. It's there is that balance.
Yeah.
Again,
yeah.
The listening and also the giving and
exactly.
knowing how and when. And I know you give a lot. You're one of those people that I look up to so much because I feel whether it's with your filming, your photography, or with your friends and your climbing, you give a lot. And I also have seen you evolve as, a person that has learned your limits.
Yeah, learning more boundaries and learning more...
The boundaries.
Yeah, that just giving doesn't necessarily at some point it's not going to be good even to the person that you're giving to. And
No,
you definitely like
exactly.
deplete yourself. I mean, I
Yeah.
was a kid
You're not doing a good
who,
job.
Yeah, I mean, I remember coming back like home from like school or a trip or whatever, and just like I'm such a FOMO, like a fear of missing out person. Like I had to go to all the things, I had to see all the people, and I was just like, I wouldn't even feel myself get tired because I do think I like get energized by other people and doing that stuff, and then I would just come home eventually somehow, and my mom would open the door at 7 and I would be out,
Like
because
passed
out, and she would just leave me because she already knew
No
that's
dinner
my
for you.
person.
You need sleep
You
more
need
than
sleep.
anything.
Yeah,
Oh
you
my
need
God,
to
she
take your
knew
rest.
you.
Yeah, she knew that I will just keep going out, and that is something that as I've gotten older, I'm like. And I mean, I feel it like it's a guttural reaction when there's something going on social, like even like not even be a good friend. It's just like, oh, there's a party in like campsite CO9. I'm like, wait, where? Wait, who?
There's a fire?
Like, is there a fire too? Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Like,
Okay,
wait.
wait.
I'm like, and I'm looking at Nick. I'm like, are we chilling? And now I'm finally at this point where I'm like, yeah, I don't need to go
anymore.
to the fire CO9. Like it's gonna be okay. Like I probably just want the good sleep, and I get that gut feeling. But then after, I'm definitely in these last years, I'm like, yeah, like pat on the back. And I honestly think the first time with that was traveling around a ton those 4 years in Europe, and like moving all around, a lot of shared living spaces, a lot of shared whatever, and trying to work and edit. I realized quite early, like I have to have a door that like closes for me to do my editing, because I will just tap in to the conversation happening. Someone's coming in. Oh, what are you making for muesli for breakfast for real? I'm just like anything.
Nyla's, like making her tea. Like, what kind of tea is that?
So can we just talk about it
yeah,
though?
yeah,
Can we,
let's just like have a
so
conversation.
I realized I have to like shut those walls, and I figured those things out about myself. Like I have to create that inside space, and then once I'm in it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is good for me, and this is how I get things done, and this is where I can learn to be in my own self, start to trust my own voice instead of just being reactionary to all the things around me, which I'm really good at, and it is a great skill to have for some of the things I do, but it's not a way that I'm gonna like grow and become a more balanced, healthy person, right? I have to be able to make those
and they're conscious
distinctions.
decisions.
Yes.
And that's how I feel. It's like I'm realizing
they're uncomfortable.
They're uncomfortable. It's like how you were saying, and we're talking about our lifestyles, which over the past years have not been like super consistent, and like kind of here and kind of there. And so one of the things that I feel like is hard. What's that?
Kind of here and there. It's a nice way to put it.
Kind of. Yeah. Like here and there all over the place.
Yeah.
Oh my
Very.
God, that's so funny. I love that. That's so hilarious. I'm just like thinking about my life right now. I'm like, yeah, the storage unit, the van, my parents' house, Spain. And so it's so hard to have routine.
Yeah.
And that's what my therapist is like, how's your morning routine? I'm like, my fucking morning routine is like a piece of chaos. I don't know. I wake up, I make coffee, I like look at my Google Doc, and like then I go, and he's like, well, okay, let's talk about this. Like some meditation, a little yoga class. And it's like, but that's the thing. It's like, and it's so hard, and that's when you need to close the door, whether it is I'm going to focus on editing first thing in the morning before I have all the input from 8 to 10 and not let anyone in. I'm going to focus on my yoga class and then do some editing, whatever it is. Find your practice and freaking do the practice. But it's so hard with that lifestyle to like actually and there again, whereas like I'm hoping, as we're speaking about like our future dreams of having a home base, where maybe it would be a little bit easier to have that little more of a routine. I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
It'll be an interesting shift, yeah.
For both of us.
Yeah, because I'm definitely not a routine person. I do mini routines in like many places. Like, I'll get into a new place. I'm like, oh, okay, in this place, I do X, Y, and Z. And so it becomes a routine for that 2 months or whatever. And even in that space, I can like just throw a little wrench in there. But I do, I have learned, and it is my personality to roll with the chaos and roll with like the things coming in. But I do think that like, as I think about, just my energy and my time, I don't even want to say productivity because that is a part of it, but it's kind of that part we were talking about earlier. But it's really just like having energy for myself and my activities and people in my life, like just not being reactionary to like, oh, I'm just showing up and I don't have everything's out the window and now I'm using all my energy just like organizing the thing. Instead, creating that routine so you know what you're walking into. And I am hoping that, you know, then I can just use that skill I have for when stuff really comes at you and hits the fan. And
Right.
because just less and less energy. Like
Yeah,
as we
less
get
energy,
older,
and I feel like as we get older, I think also our priorities are simply shifting. Like what we need is shifting. I think you and I talked about this too just the other day about like how even in Spain, in that little village, Cornudella, where like I kind of spun out a little bit this spring because it was like very busy. It was like the first time I'd been back since
there's a
COVID.
really good social crew
It's
there.
such a fun social crew.
so
And they're
fun.
going to the bars and they're having barbecues and they're having dinners and going climbing all as a team. And, and I kind of got to the point where I'd like run myself into the ground. And then I was like, oh, okay, I need to just like chill by myself and have all this time to like just recuperate. I think we're getting better at not crashing like that, but I think we were both like, yeah, we still crash like that sometimes. Like, oh, yep, took it a little too far right there, you know.
Which is that goes back again to that cultural stuff. I remember some of my first trips there that people were
Do you
like,
want another beer?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Where people were like, wait, you guys already had dinner or you guys already had breakfast? And I was like, well, yeah.
Like we're going.
Like we got up and we just had breakfast. Like we made some muesli. And I remember we were staying with this Spanish crew. They were awesome. They were like letting us stay in and we were like, you know, climbing every day. But I just remember how like offended they were that we did not have breakfast with them and kind of like forced us into a second breakfast even. And it was this real thing as like,
this is true.
like Dyla will get like a triggered knee-jerk reaction when you know, I pull out a sandwich and I don't offer her half.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't grow up like, it's like, you didn't bring your own sandwich? Like, that sucks. You know, I mean, obviously we would share if someone's like, hey, can I please, I forgot my sandwich, you know, but to them, it's like, you do not bring out a piece of anything to share and you don't go to the cliff without 10 of your homies and you don't go to the bar without everyone staying till 3.
And I do find it a little annoying sometimes because I'm like, I made this really good sandwich and what do you have to offer? Like a bar? Like, fuck that, you know?
And like we would come back and, you know, my boyfriend's ravenous and so we're just eating right away and everyone's like, whoa. The one, we ate so early at 7:30 or 8. And 2, they're just like, wow, you know, you're just so Americans. They're just so in their own thing. We're like, yeah, we just kind of take care of our stuff.
We need to take care of our needs.
You know, it's just, again, it's that give and take from cultures. And like, it's just like an independence. Like I can still just go off on my own and it's okay. And there's certain cultures where it's like, you know, and so that can take a lot of energy for us. It can be super fun and it's an amazing thing to be part of a community.
Challenging.
Yeah, it's one of the things that's great. Like, hey, these people will be there, you know, when you're going through the stuff and like they are, you know, but at the same time, people need alone time, at least like if we've grown up needing some of that.
Harder for them to accept.
And harder for us to take.
And I feel like that is something I have also gotten better at. And maybe COVID, I think, did that to all of us because I've talked to a lot of girlfriends about this. I feel like now there are more moments where I'm just like, Pata, you go. I'll stay here. It's like, are you sure? No, but it's not going to be the same. Come on. And he like tries really hard. I'm like, I really just want to lay right here. Like I'm in my pajamas.
I mean, I was a person that I hated baths, kind of. I was like, what are you doing here? I remember just being like,
I know, I
like,
thought
what's
you turned
next?
on to them.
Yes, you did. And especially around COVID. And like, and I was like,
Love them.
this is it. And then I like, and I still do some stuff in there. I still got a podcast going.
I
And maybe I'm listening to some Chani out there.
Chani
Hey, Chani.
Love you, Chani.
You know.
Sponsor us.
But it is just a little like a meditative time to take in for those things and to be good to the body. That definitely happened in the last 2 years. Whereas like that time before, I was always like, what? Like, what do you, this is like a waste of time. I'm trying to take a shower and get on to the next one, you know?
Yeah.
And, so yeah, those things just change, and it's
They
like
change, and it's not like you have to tell somebody that is younger that this is the way. They'll figure it out on their own because like they'll need it suddenly because they'll want it suddenly.
Yeah, 25-year-olds don't need to be hanging out just taking baths all the time.
No, we're just like we're
go live your life.
I'm like, I thought about this today. I'm like, this could be another good question. It's like, what do you wish you would have known back then that you know now? But I'm just like, you know what? I knew what I needed.
Yeah,
and this is how I get to what I know now. as like you get through the experiences and our needs shift.
Totally
You needed the
shift.
5-minute shower back then. Now I need the freaking like 40-minute bath and
Yeah.
chummy, you know?
Yeah.
Like-
And so I got to shift all those other priorities to make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just like
/ get a house.
and like a place for
Not
all
be
of our
showering at the
shit.
Anytime Fitness.
I
Because
know.
that's really
I'm
sad.
so tired of that. I'm so tired of that one.
Yeah,
Another
probably the-
thing I'm tired of. Okay, I know this is super petty, but I just
It's
want to
okay.
share with you.
Yeah,
okay,
when you're on the
thanks.
road, stuff gets petty.
Okay, I'm just going to tell you. Okay, one of the other things that I find really hard is just answering questions about that. So, for example,
Okay.
life is still transient, still being a vagabond in a temporary place that I'm about to move out of, a little tiny studio, this really cool little place that I got to be in for a little while, right? But during that time, I started taking some yoga classes, going to this gym, this rock climbing gym in Grand Junction. But of course, these people that have these normal lives and these normal routines in these houses are asking like, oh, sorry, you're like living in Grand Junction now. And like, what are you, and these questions are all so kind and innocent, right? But they're asking these questions that I have no answers to. And then I find myself just like explaining, I'm temporarily in this one place, but I'm about to move. And I just like get so caught up. I just need to have an answer. Like right now I'm here, or you know what I
Yeah,
mean? But
yeah.
those questions, I think they just trigger
I
me because
know.
I'm like,
They
they're so in the face that I have no
know.
freaking clue what's going
I
on.
know. I agree. Yeah, the whole where do you live, where are you from? And I definitely did that thing a few years ago where I was just like, I just said an answer that I knew wasn't right, and it would work until you got to like question 3, because I'd be like, "Oh, well, what do you, whatever, and how's your job there?" And you're like, "Well, it would only work to just like shut
A
someone
certain
down."
degree.
Yeah, but if someone's gonna start asking questions, you're gonna have to like, "Well, I don't really live there. It's just I'm kind of
just
like
taking a
I'm just
shower."
I'm just because now it's like people are like, where do you live? I say West Virginia, and to be fair, I moved a lot of my stuff there last fall. But as my partner likes to say often, I actually only spent probably a total of not, because he's again very specific. He's like, it was only 6 weeks, and I'm like, okay. Maybe I wasn't doing the math or whatever. I'm
like,
like,
that
but
might be true,
yeah,
but
but
I'm
I'm
not
like,
sure.
well, where else am I gonna say? You know what I'm saying? Like that's where I moved to. That's where my stuff is, and hopefully next year it'll be more than 6 weeks or whatever.
It's gonna be more. It's gonna be more like on a home base.
But it is hard. It's a hard
It's
question, and it is
hard.
triggering.
And I do love Grand Junction. It's not like
Sure.
I couldn't see myself having like a home base there, but that's
Yeah.
not what's happening right now, and they
Yeah.
don't understand.
And it goes down to a lot of things. People want people to fit in a box, that makes sense to them.
Yeah, and they understand it.
Yeah, and it's hard for someone to be like, and you get some people that are like, oh, well, that sounds like exhausting. And like, are you okay? And you're like, I remember like in the height of my traveling, like I was basically based in Japan, but I couldn't even stay there with my passport and stuff, I think more than like 3 months at a time. I had to leave anyway. And I was
okay.
traveling so much at
I
this
remember
period.
the Japan
Yeah, it was
thing.
kind of 2016, 2017. I mean, I was all over the place. And yeah, just like people just wanting those answers. And you're like,
they just want the answers because they care and they want to know who you are.
specifically, I'm thinking of this one worker people that were just like, so you do what? And they were kind of like, oh, that's like cute, and you're just like, oh, okay, this is really getting to the insecurities. Like, it's really hitting, you're hitting hard.
You're just like, yeah.
And
this
it's just
is-
none of it is cool or whatever. And you're like, yeah, I know. It's not for everybody.
It's not for everyone. And the thing is, like, ultimately, in those moments, I have to remember, like, if I'm talking to Colette, I have to say nothing. She gets it. And that's why you surround yourself with like-minded people,
Yeah.
because those are the people that also accompany you through your
Yeah.
life, as you and I started this, conversation with,
Mm-hmm.
on and off, through WhatsApp messages, being together in Rifle, being together in Spain, not seeing each other for 6 months, and there's no judgment, there's no expectation, there's no
Yeah.
pressure, and it's just like, all right, that is my family.
Oh, yeah. And I go back to my point about because I kind of lost my train of thought, but I remember people being like, oh my God, you're going here, you're going there. They're like, your life doesn't have to be that complicated. It doesn't have to be that crazy. And I was like, I love my life. I was like,
Totally.
actually, like I am having a blast. Like I went to some of the craziest places I've ever been to during that period. And yes, it was exhausting. Yes, it was like all this, whatever. But I was like, no, I'm not trying to change this. Like, I really like it. Like, I like my lifestyle. And it's just
Yeah.
like people on the outside deciding they know what you need or what's best for you, which is like an interesting, if anything, it makes me double down, you know? Like whenever I'm unsure about myself, someone try to tell me what to do and I'll be like, actually, I know exactly what to do.
Yes, exactly. It is so
I'm great.
I'm good. You know what? Never mind.
Yeah.
It's so funny because like whenever I do turn to my mom, which I have to be really careful about any kind of things, and she's like, well, you know, you've chosen this lifestyle. Isabel. If I'm like, you know, in a down because of like, I don't know, I'm like stranded somewhere and like it's like chaotic. And I'm like, I'm so stressed out. I'm about to go here and I have nothing and I whatever, and just like all the chaos that comes with that lifestyle. And she's like, well, Isabel, you know, you have chosen a pretty chaotic lifestyle. So, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I should have called Colette.
Yeah, I've had a very similar. I was like, I remember saying that to my mom. I feel like if I do this thing, it's kind of throwing everything up there. She was like, yeah, it is. I was like, thanks, Mom. Yeah, you're right. You know, but I was gonna do like whatever that choice was. It was gonna happen. So that's what's happening. She's like, yeah, that's definitely what's happening. Yeah, and I should have just called a girlfriend.
Yes, exactly. But sometimes you're just like, well, maybe she'll be like, and she's like, no, you've chosen all these things.
And it's good to hear the hard truth about it too, because sometimes you're sort of wavering in this like, oh, is there some answer? And the reality is like, no, it's kind of fucked, and it's gonna be chaotic, and shit's everywhere, and you like got to figure out the thing for tonight, and you know,
and like tonight we're gonna find like, remember how I got stuck in that airport in Barcelona? And you're just like, Isabel, girlfriend, one piece of advice: get a fucking hotel room. Do not sleep in the. You're too old for that. Do not sleep in the airport. Did you hear me? And I freaking get in a hotel room, and I'm like, Colette, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, it would have been so miserable.
I know.
You just learn those things, and you know how to call.
You know the money is such a big thing, I think, for our lifestyle. When you're kind of, you know, working these kinds of jobs and just making the things meet for, you're not signing up for that 9 to 5 and that 401k for a reason. You're, you know, all that little stuff matters. And we, you know, take that into consideration all the time. No, I don't have to do that. I mean, how many airport floors have you slept in? How many like things have you done to save money over the years? So many. We're always they're like budget crazy. Sketchy. Yeah. But there's some moments, that was another coming of age, where I'm like, this $150 or whatever it is so worth it for X, Y, and Z. And it's like, and that is where I become like a pata. Like things will work out. Money comes and goes. Resources, whatever.
You are.
Like,
I appreciate that because I get all like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense. And then it's like in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing for the sanity that you gain.
The sanity and the energy that you save. It's like now with that energy you have, you can actually go to your job tomorrow or show up for whatever you need to do. You know, instead of just like dragging yourself through the dirt and you know, being down and not having any creative energy or not being able to.
I will always have that Colette voice in me since that moment.
And being kind to yourself about it. And you don't do that every time. You don't get hotels every night.
No, it's like a once in a while, like where shit just like hits the fan.
You know, you have to choose your battles, and like sometimes we have to be like realistic on what that means. Totally. And it shifts what those battles are. Yeah.
Oh, Colette, this is so nice. I really appreciate this. It'll be really interesting to see how things unfold. We'll have to have a follow-up next year.
This will not be I will be a regular on your podcast.
You will absolutely be a regular on my podcast. You have been such an important person in my life, and I truly, deeply appreciate it, and I love you so much, and I can't wait for a follow-up.
Yes, there will be follow-ups. We are lifelong friends. You do the same for me. You know I'm not as good as explaining it as you are.
I know.
That's my British side.
I'm the like weird cheesy one, and you're just like, don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't hug me. But yeah, it's okay. I love you too.
I love you to death, and you know that, and you've done all those things for me. Yes. Oh, thank you for having me on your podcast.
This was amazing.
More to come. All the adventures. That's just our pre-up.
There will be more. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And please feel free to send questions, comments, and topics you would like to hear about to Isabel@kegelsandcoffee.com. That is ISABEL @kegelsandcoffee.com. Or you can find me on Instagram under Kegels and Coffee. Take good care, stay tuned, and remember, when in doubt, drink coffee or do Kegels.